I know. When I look at him, he's always had a good look as far as his body went. He always had a pretty muscular physique. I don't know how much of that is natural, and I assume it's natural. I assume he's under the same scope that everyone else is in that company. But I don't know either. But you look at someone like Hunter and you go, what has he ever really done?
Okay, people, let's do this. I got two big criticisms of the Maha movement. They're actually the same two big criticisms that I always have of government. By the way, it's This Week in Tyranny. It's episode 135, Saturday, July 5th, day after 4th of July, 2025. My name's Konrad Rogoz. I have these same two criticisms of government all the time, but I want to call attention to that because it may be useful that I have a formula here. No one wants to sound like a broken record and say the same things over and over again, but at the same time, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? I don't have to change what I say just to create new content. It holds true. So before we even get into it, here are my two criticisms of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and the Make America Healthy Again movement, RFK's health actions, right? Number one, the main one is they're not actually doing what they say they are. That is my one contention. My second contention is, even if they are, it's not good enough. It's a drop in the ocean. It's a step forward. This is what people say, right? It's a step forward, step in the right direction. It's a step forward on an inclined treadmill set to 10. So it's really, you're really moving backwards. But let's get into the story. Let me get into addressing what I saw this week. What I saw this week was a video uploaded June 26 entitled RFK Jr. Unveils New Food Industry Shakeup. That's the title. It was an appearance on the Fox News channel where HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt discussed the Maha movement's effect on changing ingredients and products from major food companies on the Faulkner Focus, some Fox News show. So I'm going to play it, okay? Let's listen to it.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., HHS Secretary, and Kevin Stitt, Governor of the great state of Oklahoma. Great to see you both, gentlemen. Secretary, first I'll begin with you. How is it going, and what is the response like? I get what the companies are doing, but what are Americans telling you about this?
Well, I love what Dr. Mark Siegel just said. We're getting this extraordinary outpouring of cooperation, and it's, without regulation, without having to do that. These companies are standing up. We had Nestle's this week. We had ConAgra. I'm getting rid of food dyes. We've had Kraft, the biggest food company, that has also pledged to do that. Tyson's Food has already gotten rid of all of its dyes. And then, we've got little companies like Steak and Shake and many of the fast food companies that have now pledged to get seed oils out and go back to beef tallow-fat. So, and then the insurance companies have now come to the table and agreed to get rid of most of their prior authorizations, which is going to change the lives of hundreds of millions of Americans. And the great thing about it is that, we have not had to regulate. We have not had to drop that hammer. We're getting this extraordinary outpouring of enthusiasm and cooperation. And Governor Kevin Stitt is...
So, cooperation without regulation. In other words, no action taken. It's just PR stuff. No action taken. The word performative came up. Someone wrote an article. Performative, and I think that describes it well. Performing as in for show. It's just for show. Now, if you believe the statements from Nestle and Kraft, Heinz, these food companies, that's on you to believe them. I don't believe the statements from these food companies. I am much more inclined to believe in the track records of these companies. And history, we have an established history of what's going to happen. And what history says is going to happen is this. Nothing that the food corporations don't want to happen. That's what we have established history telling us is what's going to go down. Government never, ever, ever seriously hurts the business of a mega corporation. We're talking about big corporations, okay? We're talking about Walmarts, Amazons. In the food sector, we're talking about Nestle. We're talking about Kraft, okay? In fact, whenever action is taken that would seriously hurt Nestle, a Monsanto, a Bayer, even at the local level when it happens, then people start to get paid off. The right people in the right positions will get bribed, and the legislation is going to get passed, or it's going to get shot down accordingly. And if it doesn't happen, because you can't control everybody on a string, right? So if that doesn't happen, then people get killed, people get blackmailed, people lose their careers over extramarital affairs, things like that. Things like that go down. So you could say it's a step in the right direction, even to get the conversation going, right? People say that even to start the conversation and put it out there in the national spotlight, that these artificial food ingredients are bad, that pesticides are bad, all these things, high fructose corn syrup, that's a step in the right direction. I don't think it's a step in the right direction, because nothing is actually being done. It's just been announced, and it's being announced by a guy who, this is not like the Buddha announcing it to the world. This is a polarizing figure. So it gets to a point where, because of who he's aligned with, what administration he's in, a certain figure taking a step in a certain direction is not necessarily good for that movement, for those goals. But that's kind of beside the point. My big deal with this is nothing's actually being done. Not whether it's good or nothing's being done. So let's go into that announcement now. There's an announcement that this news appearance was based on, right? This Fox News appearance, it wasn't anything newsworthy. It's just they did a story to promote him, okay? So, but where they're getting their information from, the source that this references it, okay? The food industry shakeup, as they called it. It's from a news release from April. And here, this is a news release, an article you could find that I'll link. HHS, FDA to phase out petroleum-based synthetic dyes in nation's food supply. Okay, this was for immediate release, April 22nd, 2025. So we're talking 2 months back. Now, reading this, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the FDA today announced a series of new measures to phase out all petroleum-based synthetic dyes from the nation's food supply. A significant milestone in the administration's broader initiative to make America healthy again. Now, in case you missed it, the action sentence there, like the key phrase was, today announced a series of new measures to phase out. That's a lot of euphemizing, and we're going to go further into that, okay? This is continuing the article. The FDA is taking the following actions. 1. Establishing a national standard and timeline for the food industry to transition from petrochemical-based dyes to natural alternatives. 2. Initiating the process to revoke authorization for 2 synthetic food colorings, red number 2 and orange B. 3. Working with industry to eliminate 6 remaining synthetic dyes, green 3, red 40, yellow number 5, number 6, blue number 1, blue number 2, from the food supply by the end of next year. Authorizing 4 new natural color additives in the coming weeks. Partnering with number 5. Partnering with the National Institutes of Health, NIH, to conduct comprehensive research on how food additives impact children's health and development. And number 6, requesting food companies to remove red number 3 sooner than the 27-28 deadline previously required. To go through those 6 things, and just going to highlight again the action word, what's actually been done. Establishing, initiating, working with, authorizing, partnering with, requesting. Those are the 6. I've talked on this show about my experience as a manager in construction and what that has taught me, right? That's what I do on a daily basis. And when things inevitably go wrong in that job, as they always do, you are the last stop. You're the guy who's going to have to answer for what went wrong. So this is the position that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is in, and all these people in government. Okay, you have to answer for what's going on. So there comes a time in your job where you get the question asked, what have you done? What are you actually doing? Like, hey, you're supposed to finish my project. I've been waiting 3 weeks. Why aren't you there? Now, look at this, what we just read, what the HHS and the FDA announces. So imagine me saying what they're saying to a client. Okay, me, a guy who's not, I'm not in charge of the nation, I'm just in charge of one company. I'm establishing a timeline. I'm going to initiate the process to get the workers there. I'm initiating the process. Meanwhile, the work was supposed to be done 3 weeks ago, right? Nobody's there. I'm initiating the process. I'm working with people, working with them, authorizing new measures, and then I'll be partnering with somebody else, and then I'll be requesting someone to show up. Okay, will that fly? Would that work if I did it? No. No, you're going to get, are you doing the fucking floor right now? Yes or no? That is what actually happens in the real world, okay? So the fact that this is just talked about as if it's done. They banned these food dyes. They banned all this stuff. It has to be the result of the social media era, honestly. This hyperpolarized, toxic, bot-infested internet zone, completely devoid of respect and decorum. I don't go on Twitter, but it's, in general, the internet is just a cesspool of a space where hypocrisy and logical fallacy is not a sin, it's not a taboo, but it's almost expected. It's expected that people are just going to talk shit and not back it up. That environment, that it's not just young people in it. Everyone, like the political landscape, the conversations, ideological conversations, and really where information is seriously discussed. It's discussed in this toxic space. That environment is the reason that people today, they're satisfied with someone like RFK Jr. saying what they agree with. They're satisfied with that and not actually requiring being effective in changing things and bringing those ideas into fruition. It's fine that they just say what you want. That's good enough. For me, it's not good enough. So this is why people support Trump today, because this wouldn't have happened, or maybe that's right, because we had Bush before, right? So very similar president, but the level. Kind of the behavior that is acceptable, we're talking about like just clownish stuff, and you guys know me, I'm no snowflake, right? So I'm not one of these people that's I wasn't bothered about him saying grab him by the pussy, I don't anyway. People support this guy because he's a true social media president. It's memes and moments. That's what most of this country supports now. Memes and moments. Which many people marvel at. How did we get here? How did this country fall apart so quickly? What happened to America? They wonder how it's possible that so many people support him. And that's where guys like me are waving. Hi, welcome to Earth. We've been waiting for you for 20 years. And no joke, guys, my political worldview has been solid for like 15 years now. Solid. Like minor alterations haven't really changed my worldview because I haven't need to. I've been right. By the time I was 14, I knew that the government was running a scam. And I never got tricked since. I never jumped on the bandwagon of a candidate since then. In 2012, I did think that there may be a pole shift on December 21st. So I was kind of waiting for the end of the world, what was I, 16 then? When Trump won in 2016, I was happy for a few hours, I'm not going to lie, right? So what was I, 20 years old then, 19? When I hear about a new virus in China in November of 2019, I did actually think it might be highly deadly. I was ahead of the mainstream media on that, right? Because I actually thought that this would be a thing that would kill like millions of people. But like in 2012, it took me a few minutes after, the world didn't end. I think, I should have known. That was foolish of me to expect that, because the world doesn't end. Everyone always says the dollar's about to collapse and the crash is going to happen tomorrow and the power grid's going to collapse, and it never does. Nothing too crazy really happens on a world scale. Now, I know there were world wars and all, but really, if we're going based on recent history, nothing crazy really happens on a world scale. Usually the sun just rises and it's the same old life, and people are always a step behind. They're a step behind and they're getting fucked by the government. So that was 2012. 2016, not proud to say it, but if when Donald Trump won the election, remember, it was against Hillary Clinton. It was after 8 years of Barack Obama and the authoritarian advance that was happening then. So, and this is at a time where the guy was on Alex Jones's show talking about the shadow government and that he's going to expose the truth, and really the first president since JFK, I think, to openly discuss a conspiracy, right? The first candidate to discuss that, and then he won. And then a few hours after he won, I realized, I was thinking like, oh yeah, it's the government. He probably won't do what he says. It's probably just another game. And then it took a couple days, seeing the reactions of the people, how they celebrated him here, but they attacked him there. That's when it settled in again. I'm like, oh yeah, it's all fake. I should have known. And then in 2019, I was, 23. Yeah, I was concerned. I was concerned about what would happen. Then early 2020 comes around, and I'm seeing it all on the media, and then the media picks it up. And I realized, of course, they want us to be afraid. I should have known. I should have known this is another fear tactic, okay? Anyway, I guess people just don't have my passion for reality, is what it has to be. I want things to make sense. I deeply require things to be real. I need things to be real. So this is why I gotta tell you, it's not to make the show about me, but I'm gonna tell you my Santa Claus story finally, and make this metaphor, because it matters. When I was like 6 years old on Christmas Eve, I decided that I was gonna stay up and wait for Santa Claus. This is like my, I'm like, okay, I gotta get to the bottom of this. What's up with the Santa Claus thing? It didn't make sense, right? I needed to know how it happened. It's not even that it didn't make sense. It's just that's on its face. That's an amazing thing. You're telling me this guy somehow gets in the house. He breaks in the house and leaves presents, and no one in the world has seen him. Like, I'm gonna find this guy. And it's not about the presents, right? I wanted the explanation, so I stayed up for so long. I stayed up, well beyond my 6-year-old capabilities. So then I woke up the next morning, and the presents are there. And I go through this sequence of responses, right? First, I was so pissed. I was so angry and frustrated that I failed. I failed my mission. I didn't stay up. Just like a kid, I had a big plan and it failed. But then after that, it was the scrutiny. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, it looks like this thing doesn't work. Like, how did he know to wait until after I fall asleep? Like, I thought, like, this doesn't work if you're watching it. It only works if you're not watching it, like some sort of a magic trick, right? And I wasn't sure at that time yet that it was my mom that put the presents there, right? A part of me thought that it was honestly this magical thing, and it was just impossible to catch Santa Claus, like a glitch in reality. It's not a bad thought, right? Because when we talk about the observer effect on quantum mechanics, that's basically what is the mainstream predominant thought about how subatomic particles work. Anyway, but even if I didn't know how it actually works, it doesn't matter. That would be good enough. That is good enough, because even if you don't understand how it fully works, you are no longer gullible at that point. And after 6 years old, I was no longer gullible about this. Whenever someone mentions Santa Claus after that, you will always remember that is an area where something's going on and there's cause for suspicion. So you would never blindly trust what the adults are saying, because they don't share your concerns and your suspicions. So in the back of your mind, you're going to consider the possibility that they might be in on it. And what a lesson this is. This is where I wish the general population would be today, in 2025. Me at 6 years old. That would be a respectable stage of worldview development. If people thought about the government the way I thought about Santa Claus after 6 years old, that would be a big improvement. So when we talk about this phenomenon, and it is a phenomenon that in the face of all of the generations of evidence of lies, evidence of crimes by the government, no matter who is in office, time and time again, without fail, in the face of all that experience and historical record, most people buy the story fully, just like Santa Claus. And that's the story, that the world is more or less uncontrolled, that there is no conspiracy, that the power players in all of the nations are not working together behind closed doors and following their separate agenda. That's the story that people buy. So the phenomenon that people still buy that story, it can only be explained by concluding that they have been suspended, held back in an early childhood stage of development, at least in this respect. When it comes to authority and worldview, people are stuck in an early childhood stage of development, the Santa Claus and Tooth Fairy stage. Now, how is that possible? How is it possible for people to be 50, 60, 70 years old and never get it? It would be possible if they never get that opportunity to perform the experiment that I did at 6 years old. I was living only with my mom at the time, so it was just me. My brother was already out of the house. My dad wasn't there. There were no other children living there that would have affected my experiment. If you have siblings, you're always going to think what they think. If you have people around, you're going to be, of course, you're going to be influenced by those views, right? I didn't have that. It was really an experiment. Like I only had my reasoning affecting it. So I had time to absorb the results and to think about it, marinate on what went down. There was no constant stream of narratives there influencing my thought process, assuring me that this is the way it was and fucking up my experiment. I got to just see and figure it out. And, not to make everything about this one little story, but it's an example of the many experiences that we need to have as children and part of our maturation process growing up in the world. And I think shit like this, I think that's why I grew up to be intelligent. And intelligence, by my definition, is pattern recognition. It's how well you could see things repeating. And I got good at recognizing patterns because my childhood was very reflective. I had a very reflective childhood. A lot of time to observe and reflect, a lot of reading, a lot of thinking, a lot of watching, not so much doing, right? This is when I got older. I had to learn how to do the right things, but I had plenty of time to observe and study, and that's how I grew up. And I got pretty good at recognizing especially patterns on like a wide level. Like, we're talking about what happens at school, what happens in the world. That's just how it turned out for me. Now, life is supposed to be not only reflective but stimulating. This is what your childhood needs to be like. Like, they're both equally important. And this is why children have so much eagerness and curiosity, because they need the stimulation and they need the explanation too. These are both forces driving their development. They're eager as hell to do things. They want to try new things and do things. And they're also curious. They're going to keep asking you why. They're going to need to tie these things. They have a necessity to connect things logically, to make them make sense, to make things fit. If you take away stimulation and the ability to reflect, you're creating someone with a disability. And this is my contention of what has happened with the world. People have a disability when it comes to their ability to recognize patterns when it comes to government and authority. And I say all this to make a point which is really a side point, but it's a very important side point. It's the instant communication that is destroying the world right now. It's the social media era. I use those terms interchangeably. This social media era, I'm talking about the same thing. And it's not just Instagram and TikTok. I mean the entire paradigm where information comes and goes so fast, headlines and sound bites, that's what people remember. I gotta shorten my videos because people can't listen to long videos now, things like that, People reference reactions to reactions. They're responding to responses, as opposed to primary sources. things like this. And when it comes to political views, people support Trump and RFK because they said what they want to hear. They said what makes them feel good. If you could visualize this, like visualize how people feel, it's like they want to give them a like. In real life, they want to say yes. That they want to see a good meme. They want to see a satisfying short moment, a mic drop moment. You know, these are the things that matter to people now because they've been conditioned into it, conditioned into that, as opposed to wanting real lasting action, wanting things to make sense. And real lasting action, real change, it takes commitment. Commitment is being conditioned out of existence through our behavior. All this short form content, it leads to short term thinking, like a junkie. So if someone says today something that you like today, that's sufficient to a lot of people. Who cares if they said something else yesterday? And that is what I see all the time. It's people just switch their views and act like nothing happened, or they don't even deny that it happened. It just doesn't matter. This is who I am today, and that's it. That's one thing, but also it's just the sheer volume and intensity of the content. There's so much out there, you can't turn your head without a notification going off, an advertisement or something else that captures your attention. So how can you take the time to do the experiment in your head? The experiment, like, why does the populace always get screwed by government? Why don't things ever get better? Why have things never gotten better in the grand scheme of things when it comes to politically? Because there's a constant stream of narratives. There's a constant stream of talking points, arguments, all of these things that are affecting the way you think, influencing your thought process. So you cannot do those experiments and you cannot actually mature in your view. Because your logic is constantly being shut down and pointed in the directions and the paths that are so well traveled they're unavoidable. Like, what? In other words, there's so much information out there. The only ideas that get attention are the main ideas, the popular ones. Only the popular is visible. Like my music, right? So many people are making music, and there are plenty of amazing genius musicians out there that you'll never find because only the popular is visible. The popular is not necessarily better, but that's the only thing you can see. That is a side effect, or maybe it's a main effect, maybe it's an intended effect, but that's the effect of having a whole waterfall torrent of information available. It's like the raindrop on the windshield that drips down and it hits another one, and then it gets absorbed into the bigger one's path, and then it's just one raindrop. That's what I see out there in the world. It's one giant river or two, and if you want to drink from that river, you have to go where everybody else is, and you have to live according to the rule of that mob, because otherwise you'll be ignored, you'll be isolated. So in conclusion, everything I said up until now was point number one of 2 points. The point number one is they're not actually changing anything. They're not actually doing anything. It doesn't matter what somebody says or writes. It matters what people actually do. And what is actually practiced in the world is no longer consistent with what is even written in the law. So you could talk about the Constitution, you could talk about the big beautiful bill that just got signed. Okay, even the tariffs. But I'm always reminding people, what is signed and what is practiced are two different things, especially now. I don't think they align as much as we think it does. Like, it's not about what laws are on the books out there. It's about what laws get enforced. That is the era we live in. Because there's a flood of information. There's a bunch of stuff out there. But when it comes to the information that is actually key in deciding the course of the planet, that is a little trickle of information. A couple drops that we never find. Because there's a flood. Imagine a little water dripping from an icicle in the cave, but it's behind a big fucking waterfall. You're never gonna find it. So don't get caught in the flood, in the waterfall. And don't blame Trump, don't blame RFK. These are pawns. These are pawns that were created by us, created by a populace that is ready for Santa Claus government. The end. The end. That's point number one. There's a whole second half to this, but I won't do it here. And I've done it. It's a mistake that I've made chronically on This Week in Tyranny. I do this all the time. I give you too much at once. Too much content. It's a mistake. It's a mistake that I make all the time. And I realized this today. This is the same thing I just criticized with RFK. Not just with RFK, but with the social media era. It's constant overstimulation. So much information that you don't get a chance to digest all of it and breathe and absorb on it. You don't get a chance to really think about it, right? You're just getting you're just getting a lecture. Reality is, it's not about a lecture. It's not just about the information and ideas. So I could present everything I know, and then I could upload it and go back to my life, and I could walk away my head held high like, man, I gave another good lecture. I'm really doing a good job out here. But if it doesn't touch anyone, what's the point? What's the point of doing it? Information is important, sure, but it's the individual and their actions that are actually important. So only then does it actually become knowledge and intelligence. It's not knowledge. The knowledge doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's only the person that has to have that knowledge, and the person that has to have that intelligence, which is pattern recognition. So that's all these things integrated into themselves. If you can't tell by yourself what I'm saying, then it doesn't matter. Then I haven't taught you anything, right? This is the idea. So I don't want to become someone like Jordan Peterson and just lecture people from my mountain of excellence with my eccentric, colorful suits, and then nothing comes of it. And that is what I just criticized with JFK. It's like, okay, he said the right things, so what? If I say the right things, if I say the truth, so what? If nothing's being done. It's about what is actually being done. And what needs to be done is the destruction of all of the institutions, all of the illusions and practices that disable us. This is what this show has been about. It's about things that are causing mental disability in the world population. To destroy those things that are causing those disabilities, that's what needs to be done, that can be done, and that is what I desire to do with every breath. But the world teaches us a lesson, that whenever you set out to destroy something, you make your mission to destroy something and tear it down. You can do it, but you tend to get dangerously close to becoming the thing you set out to destroy. It all seems to come full circle in that way. So that's a warning. That's a warning to me, but it's a warning also to you, right? So you be alert about this. Don't let me be another voice that influences your inner narrative. Don't elect another thought leader in your mind, so to speak, right? Because one day I'm going to say or do something that you don't like, and you'll be swayed by someone else. You'll go somewhere else. And this is how we live life, just having these phases and not actually learning, not actually maturing. Phases are great. It's great to get into this for a little bit and then go somewhere else and try new things. But there needs to be a continuity and a maturity there. And we need to get to a point where we listen to us the most, because no one is coming to help us. You have to be your own leader. And instead of talking about what other people are doing, what RFK is going to do, what Trump is doing, what people do to other people, what other people do to you, dedicate more to what you're doing to the world. What are you doing to other people? What impression do you leave on them? And whether or not it inspires them to heal their disabilities. That's it. Thank you so much. See you next week. This Week in Tyranny.
I see life different, authentic, so magnetic. I'm out for connection. The world seems fake, but life is just so damn alive. This is no depression. If I'm cryptic, it's for your own protection.